Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the first episode of what we're calling Sup Homeslice. It is going to be kind of a continuation, if you were familiar with the Sports Affiliation betting collaboration with Evan and I. So why don't I bring in Evan right now? Hey, how's it going, man?
Man, going good, Iggy. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. Glad to be back here with you, having another go at it. If you're unfamiliar with what we do, we talk about fantasy sports and we talk about betting, and we combined it, and we just love talking sports. And for our very first guest for this episode, we're very lucky to have a Hall of Famer with us that is very well rounded in multiple sports, but he really loves basketball. Please welcome Scott Engel.
What's
How's
up,
it going?
fellas? How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you, Evan.
Good to see you as well, Scott. So Scott and I
kick it off better than having Scott on the show, man. What a week one guest.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you, Scott. Really appreciate you taking time out and joining us.
Anytime for you guys.
Yeah, and then home slice, man. You know the concept of the show being that pizza and sports are two things we can all agree on, especially in a political year. Everybody loves a good slice of pizza, even if you like different ingredients. I think everybody loves sports, especially if you're tuning into this. Maybe not everybody, but most people love sports, I feel like. And I feel like those two things kind of bring us together, and we're very honored to have you because, Scott, a lot of people might know you from fantasy football, from being an FSW Hall of Famer, but you actually had Knicks tickets as soon as you were 18. You've told that story before, but could you please tell that story again and how you went to several Knicks games as a youth?
By the way, if you're going to do something on pizza, you have to have a New Yorker on first. And I will tell you that a lot of people go to the pizza places in Manhattan, but the best authentic ones are in the outer boroughs. Like I live in Queens, and there are some that just blow some of the Manhattan places away. But I started my writing career when I was in high school. I won the New York Knicks High School Sports Writers Award, and with my very first article, and that started my journey to eventually become a sports writer. The school newspaper, somebody told me, "Hey, they're giving out free Knicks tickets in the library." I said, "What?" And I ran down there. So I had to ask, and the faculty advisor told me it was for the school newspaper, and if I wanted to go, I would have to write an article and go to a press conference. And I said, "Oh, all right. Well, I want the free tickets. I'll do it." And I wrote my first article. It was a Knicks season preview, and it ended up in the game program. I won the award, and I said, "Okay, maybe I have something here," and that's how I started my journalism career. And then come full circle in 2012, because during college, I actually worked at Madison Square Garden as a vendor during the Knicks games and all the concerts and stuff. And 2012, I think it was, I got my first Knicks press credential, and it was emotional.
I bet it was, man. I bet it was, and it was also emotional for us in the semi-conference finals, man. Both for Scott and I. Hate to bring up the bad times, but I got my Murray jersey. I've got my 2023, championship shirt on. Scott's got his on.
You saw a championship in your lifetime. I have
not. Well, I know, but a lot of people didn't think we did. Even Evan, who was on the Nuggets, he's a Lakers guy. We'll give him a pass. But he was very supportive of the Nuggets last year and kept saying that was going to be a good run, because I was hearing basically what a lot of Knicks fans hear. Oh, y'all will be good, and then y'all will crash out in the playoffs, like always. And, just to get over that hump finally and get that, I want that for Knicks fans. You could tell how charged the city was during that Pacers series. I mean, the city, like everything you saw was all Knicks. Everyone was happy. What can you break down that before we get to the NBA game finals? What are your thoughts on your Knicks season? Do you think they improve next year? And just, your thoughts on what I thought was a good season. They overachieved this season.
Well, fan-wise, the Knicks are the most universally beloved team in the New York market. Now, some fans will sneer at this, okay? It's been a Yankees town since the 1990s, but it was a Mets town in the 80s, the 60s, and the early 70s. The Yankees obviously having a great year and, could lead to a deep playoff run. But if the Mets ever get to a deep playoff run where they win a World Series or get back to a World Series, the city can flip. The Jets and the Giants, if the Jets ever won anything, the city would have flipped overall because you have loyal fans on each side, but then there's people that are mainstream and they'll flip to whatever's winning. I don't watch hockey, but I remember years ago that when the Islanders had a dynasty, there were more Islander fans than there are now. When the Devils had their run, there were a lot of Devils fans. The only sport that cannot be flipped is basketball. Even if the Brooklyn Nets would have won 2 championships in a row, it still would have been a Knicks town. It will always be a Knicks town, no matter what. If the Nets won a championship, you just have a lot of upset Knicks fans. And
hey, I love it.
Team-wise, this was a great year. Unfortunately, injuries got to them before they were able to maybe go to the conference finals, which was the goal. I think a lot of fans wanted to see them reach the conference finals and then get another star in the offseason, and then make a run to the finals for true contention. I still think they are headed towards that path. There are some Knicks fans that feel like Thibodeau runs his players into the ground and the rotations are too short. That is something that's going to have to be looked at, maybe better depth in the offseason.
I agree. I'm not critical of Tom Thibodeau. Celtics run their players a lot in the playoffs. Luka Doncic has upwards as the most minutes in the playoffs as you can get. Nobody's really saying that about Jason Kidd, and him doing that with his star player. But I get it. The results always kind of make whatever kind of scenario people want to build up against a head coach, because coaches lose games and players win them. I don't care what sport it is. That's just how it goes. But gentlemen, let's get to game one. And I do want to let everybody know we're going to get to their information right after this. But Evan and Scott are so well versed in NFL, basketball, and MLB specifically. I believe, Scott, you also do some. I know your son does some NASCAR. But like when it comes to those three big sports, it's going to be hard to find somebody that's just an all-around better knowledge. Somebody that has more fantasy experience than some of these guys do. And we're really blessed to have both of y'all on this show. But let's get to game one. Here we are, NBA Finals. Felt like it's been 2 months since we played a game. But here we are, finally game one at TD Garden, where Boston has been really good throughout the year. They've won every game one of the series. Dallas comes in as the hottest Western Conference team. Like I wrote, I said they made a bold statement before the playoffs began. They said, we'll go on the road and we'll win any series in the playoffs. And, because they gave up the 4th seed, breezed past the Clippers, got past the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder, and took care of the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. Boston, they've only lost 2 games throughout the playoffs. Now, people will say they're playing injured teams, less than teams. That could be true, but Boston has displayed this dominance all season long. Evan, why don't we get you in here first? Give me just your general thoughts on game one tonight, and then we'll toss it over to Scott. And what do y'all see happening tonight? 10:30 TD Garden, 8:30 TD Garden, PM, that is Eastern. What do you see going down?
Yeah, man, it feels like the NBA season kind of ended and is restarting tonight, the way the playoffs are set up. At least Minnesota won 1 game to give us a week instead of a week and a half. But 2 things real quick that Scott touched on. The pizza makes me think about kind of the outer taco places here in Southern California. You got to go to the hole-in-the-wall taco shops, right? Not the mainstream. And if the Clippers ever won a championship, it'd be the same feeling for Laker fans. It wouldn't matter. Nobody would ever flip to that side. So just wanted to bring up those 2 points real quick. Game one, man, this series, I think we're going to get a great basketball series. We didn't really get that in the 2 conference finals. You could argue Boston should have lost game 1 to the Pacers. How the Indiana blew that game is pretty mind-boggling. Steal, the meltdown of 2 turnovers, letting Brown hit that shot, all of that. But, man, I got to think that Jason Tatum comes out tonight and makes a statement, right? I mean, all the flack of getting upset in the finals, losing the Eastern Conference Finals. He's not the guy. They haven't won a finals yet. I think that Tatum comes out and plays well. I think that Boston is the better team. I think they're deeper. I think they have more on their roster to me, right? So if we're talking just tonight, the whole series, I guess we can get into that. But we're talking just tonight, I expect Boston to not let Luka and Kyrie do their thing, but they're going to get theirs. It doesn't matter, right? Luka and Kyrie are going to get theirs no matter what. And Boston is going to allow Dallas to shoot from the outside, whether it's them or anybody else. And it's PJ Washington, it's Derek Jones. Can those guys knock down the corner threes that the Celtics have teams shoot a low percentage of, right? High volume, but low makes. And if PJ Washington scores 25 and Derek Jones scores 19 and Boston loses, I don't think they change that approach. They're going to have to do that all series long. And I think for Boston, and I will mention for Dallas, Derek Lively, Iggy, he's been my guy all postseason long. He's an X factor for me. I think Porzingis is the biggest guy out there. We don't know what he's going to be like. Is he playing 20 minutes? Is he rusty? Is he thrown right back in? Do they ease him back in? I think Lively and Gafford are huge difference makers in this game. Can Luka run that pick and roll and pick apart Porzingis like he did Gobert? There's so much chess going on in this game. It's going to be awesome to see how those counter each other. And you know what Boston wants to do? They want to jack up a ton of threes and shoot 35+% no matter how many they take. When they shoot over 35, they win basketball games. So, I expect them to do that. I think that, Tatum and Brown will both play well. I think Derek White is going to be obviously a beneficiary of a lot of the attention that those guys receive. They need him. And if Porzingis is out there for 25+ minutes and playing healthy, he obviously changes the tide of this game and this series.
Yeah, I was going to say, Scott, the spread right now is 6.5 points. What do you expect from Kristaps Porzingis, the former New York Knickerbocker? Are you expecting much from him tonight? And what do you expect in general from Game 1?
First off, let me say that even though I'm a Knicks fan, this is my favorite player outside of the Knicks.
Luka.
That's my Luka Funko Pop. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just love to watch him.
He is great.
Porzingis, look, they rested him. They felt they could win that series without him. That's why I don't draft Luka Doncic in fantasy basketball, because availability is a skill, I guess, people say. Although, I've had former athletes tell me that some players are just more injury prone than others. It's in their DNA, and it's in the DNA for Porzingis. I think they'll try to test him, try to bring him out to the perimeter, see if they can draw him away from the hoop, etc. Try to see if they can test Porzingis. As for tonight and the series, Boston, I agree with you that that they're a deeper team, but it's all about hitting their threes. And since the trade deadline, Dallas has been one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. This is a real test for the Celtics. And as good as they are on your computer screen, I don't say on paper, because nobody does anything on paper anymore. It's a different world. When you look at the depth charts on your screen, you got to like Boston to be deeper. But they heavily live and die by their threes, and I think Boston knows that. Second off, Boston wasn't as tested as much as they will be tested in this series. Dallas has been, I think they came in, the 5 seed, but they knocked out, I think, like almost, what was it, like 2 of the top 3 seeds here? So they're playing like the best team in the playoffs. It's not always in any sport about who's the best team in the regular season, who gets hot during the playoffs, more the NFL than the NBA. But we get the best team overall against the hottest team in the playoffs. And it really comes down to, and Evan, you alluded to this, can the supporting cast of Dallas make a difference? Because Boston got Holiday, they got Porzingis because they felt like, okay, we need other big pieces to cinch that title. This team over the last decade has gotten too close, but we haven't gotten close enough. So they get Porzingis, they get Holiday, they're the most complete team. But the 2 best offensive players on the court, and Van Gundy was saying this during the telecast on TBS, maybe the best offensive backcourt ever, 2 guys. They can carry that team over the Celtics, because we've seen games where, and it even happened in round 1 against Miami, where the Celtics they give you a stinker and you go, is this really the best team in the NBA? So that's dangerous. That's dangerous. If you want to take Dallas on the money line tonight, you can do that. And then if you look at the bets for the series overall, the Mavs are plus 175 to win the series. I lean towards the Celtics taking this series, but I think it's so hotly contested that I got to lay a unit and a half or 2 units on this because, this can happen. And by the way, more of my analysis, check me out at rotoballer.com right now. And I'm on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio 3 to 5 every Sunday. And also my upcoming fantasy football content at Seahawks.com starting in July.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And that's channel 87. If you aren't familiar with the fantasy channel over at SiriusXM, catch Scott over there. Catch a lot of great people.
Also, I'm going to be on a New York Knicks podcast Saturday night at 8 o'clock with there's this great Knicks fan community on social media that become a part of, and they do these great Twitter spaces. One of the guys, State from Harlem, you should follow him on Twitter, X. He's going to have me on Saturday night. We're going to talk about Knicks history.
That's cool. I love it. Yeah, so make sure you guys go check that out. And we'll plug everybody's where to find the information at the end of the show one more time. I think I'll hit on some good points. Like I said, it's the hottest team in the playoffs versus the most dominant team throughout the year, or the playoffs too, only 2 losses. I think it segues really well into how the series going. Scott, you already answered it. You think Dallas has a chance. You think it's worth the wager. I laid, when it was at negative 155, I laid this series to go over 5.5 or 5.5 games. And I think that would be, that was almost a shoe-in for me because I don't think either one of these teams can win this series 4-1. I just really don't. I think it's going to go to 6.
There's no juice on that, though. It's like minus 165.
If they moved it up again, yeah. I mean, we'll lay 2 units on it to get a unit back. I mean, because I feel like it's one of the safest bets of the playoff series. And like I said, 6.5-point spread tonight. I'm not sure that Boston covers that. I think Boston's going to get, hit pretty hard with the front court. I think Lively and Gafford are going to be interesting. We kind of alluded to this earlier about this. Maybe everybody's saying this is the best offensive backcourt possibly of all time. I think it may be one of the best trades of all time, getting P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford. It's crazy that they wanted Kyle Kuzma, but he didn't think Dallas was going to do anything, so he stuck around in Washington. Instead, they get P.J. Washington, who grew up in Frisco, Texas, made a list while he was in high school, wanted to be a McDonald's All-American, wanted to go to Kentucky, wanted to play basketball for the Dallas Mavericks and win a championship. Talk about the power of manifestation. He can do all that within about a year, and he went from Charlotte to Dallas. I mean, I just can't imagine how somebody's fortune must feel middle of the season and go from a team that's one of the worst records throughout the year to a team that becomes one of the hottest in due process because of your effort, because of P.J. Washington, because of Daniel Gafford. I think Derek Lively is going to be a problem. He's in fact, we'll get to it when we get to the pizza parlay. If you remember that, we're going to get to that here pretty soon. It's basically going to be our 3rd year doing that, and it's going to be a pretty fun little segment. But, Scott, like I said, you already answered how you could kind of see this series going. Evan, do you have anything different you'd like to add to that? Like I said, I see it going over 6 games. I think the front court will be interesting to watch. I do think I've got 2 great playoff guards behind me, Jamal Murray and Jason Terry. And if you're too young to remember Jason Terry, the Jet, go look him up. He finished top 10 in a lot of statistical categories whenever he finished up with his career, I believe in Milwaukee. But he was a great playoff run. The 2011 champion Mavericks are not the champion Mavericks without Jason Terry. And Dirk Nowitzki said it. But I think it's going to come down to guard play. I think that we're going to see the great offensive front court against a great defensive backcourt. It's going to be Kyrie and Luka versus Derek White and Drew Holiday, 2 great defensive guards versus 2 great offensive guards. For me personally, I think that's the whole story of this, not Jason Tatum, not Jaylen Brown. I think it's really that guard battle and how it plays out. But Evan, thoughts on the series before we get to the pizza parlay, which is basically our favorite prop bets or our straight bets for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I like what both you guys said. I mean, and tonight too, I don't know how you can trust, like Scott mentioned throughout the season, this Celtics team. I mean, Scott, you could just look at every game. Like, they could play well for 43 minutes, but there's like a 5-minute stretch where the Celtics just let a team come back in the game, right? They get ahead by 12, 13, and they go on that stinker like you mentioned. And so I think with the dominance that you talked about with, Kyrie and Luka, like there's going to be a part where they bring them back in the game if they're not already in the game, right? And so I think Dallas, to cover tonight is easily the right play. I can't trust Boston to cover the spread. On the series, when it opened up, I like, Dallas plus 1.5 games on the series was minus 110 when it opened. Hedge that with minus 2.5, which obviously is heavily juiced, but just to cover that, right? That's the series going 7. And I think that's probably the way that it goes either way. I think that Boston's going to have some games where they don't shoot well. I think Dallas is going to have some games where the role players do play well. Now, can Washington and Jones do that all series long? If they do, they're probably going to win the series. But neither one of these teams gives up 2-point field goals. They give up 3-point attempts. That's what they do. That's what they're okay with. And so I guess in today's NBA, that makes sense that we're seeing, 2 3-point shooting teams, and whoever makes the most probably wins the series. And that's kind of the NBA era that we live in right now. So, but in the middle of that, like you said, the guard play, bringing out Porzingis, bringing out the bigs, can they get those alley-oop and lobs to Gafford and Lively? I lean the Celtics. I just think that I don't trust Washington and Jones for 7 games because I think Luka and Kyrie get theirs no matter what. I think I'm going to trust the depth of the Celtics, and you alluded to it, Scott, too, and you both kind of said it, like in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know, though. Like they've been there before. They find a way to blow it. So I'm not sitting here saying that Boston rolls away with it because if it gets down late, the 2 best players in the court are on the Mavs. And if it's a late game or a game 7, it's hard to go against the best player or players, right? One game, maybe the best team, right? But I will say the home team and the team with the better record seems to win game 1 a lot of the time. And when they do, they win the series. But how much of that historical data really matters in 2024 Celtics Mavericks? I don't know if it does. So I lean Celtics, but you won't catch me being surprised, man, if this Mavericks team finds a way to do it with, those 2 guys. I did want to mention real quick, Al Horford's still trying to get that first ring. And I heard earlier today, Al Horford was drafted 2 days before the first iPhone came out.
Yeah, he's been in the league a while. I remember when he was in OKC, I thought his career was done, but as far as Boston goes, I feel like it's time for like Dennis Green, that they are who we thought they were, I just think that's kind of like, it's always that. I think it was Draymond Green on his podcast said nobody is intimidated by the Boston Celtics. He didn't say that they couldn't win. He just said nobody's really intimidated by who they are. Nobody's like worried about going into Boston and winning. They've been doing that, and it's particularly in the Western Conference. I saw a LeBron James and Anthony Davis-less Lakers go into Boston and win. I saw the Denver Nuggets go into Boston and win. So I've seen, as great as their home record is, I have seen them falter at home. They've lost both of their playoff games at home this year. So there is potential for that to happen. Let's go ahead and start getting into the pizza parlay.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question, Iggy and Scott,
okay.
Both of you guys. If the Celtics don't win the series, what does Boston do? You talked about that 10-year window, Scott. If they don't win it this year, what do the Celtics do moving forward?
By the way, hello to Coach Craig, who's watching. What do they do moving forward? I mean, what else can they do moving forward? I mean, this is the team that's put together to win now. This is win the championship or bust for Boston. So if they don't win it again, maybe they run it back with some minor adjustments here. But as a Knicks fan, and the owner of the Luka Doncic pop that's guesting today, I never want to see the Celtics win.
Sure.
As a Knicks fan growing up, the Celtics were always in the way in the playoffs. It just drove me crazy.
And as great as people treat them out to be, they've won 1 title in 37 years. The Larry Bird, that last one, 86 with Bill Walton, rest in peace. That great Celtics team. They've Kevin Garnett, Doc Rivers, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. That's it. That's the people that won in 37 years. As great as the franchise that is.
Look, it's kind of like the Yankees too. It's they'll talk about 27 world championships, but they're the team of the last century. They have 1 title, in this century. So
right.
Look, that's one more than either one of my teams have said. But when you talk about dynasties right now, has the NBA really had a recent dynasty? No. Well,
No,
Golden
yeah,
State. I'm sorry, Golden State, of course. Golden
yeah,
State is our most recent dynasty, not the Boston Celtics. You know,
yeah.
like you said, it's been a while for Boston. I conveniently forgot Golden State.
Yeah, Dallas Cowboys effect. I mean, they got lucky. Golden State, like getting past Boston in the 2022 series, like getting past Luca, getting Denver hurt. Like there were some things that went their way to get that fourth ring, but they are a dynasty. I'm not going to knock them. They're great. But let's get back to the props or straight bets. Let me break it down real quick. What a pizza parlay is. This is something I've been doing. Evan's been doing. We started this way back, going on our third year. What it is we combine what we consider the best player prop for a same game parlay. I'm going to try to pull up the DraftKings sportsbook. You can use it on any, basically every sportsbook you use is going to have the opportunity to put a same game parlay. And I want to remind everybody that it is extremely difficult to hit a parlay. That's why it
I
makes
hit
them
an
fun.
eight-legged parlay with the Knicks late in the season.
I bet you felt amazing. You probably danced, didn't you?
I did. I just wish I would have laid down more money than I did.
Yeah, that's what we always say because I rarely put a full unit down on a parlay. Rarely. Maybe on like a two-fold or something. But yeah, it's always when it hits, it's like, why didn't I put the full unit on it, But Scott, go ahead and lead us off. I got it pulled up right here. I'm going to try to share this screen while you guys kind of talk about what you guys consider a good prop tonight. And if y'all take one of mine or a straight bet, then I'll have another one on deck. So Scott, go ahead and please lead us off through our pizza parlay. And then also, do you have are you a traditionalist, like sauce, cheese, pepperoni? Is that the pie to you? Is that what you want on your pie?
Regular slice, but if you put fresh garlic in it, it's good. I have props for both the series and tonight. So for tonight, I like Kyrie Irving over 23.5 points at -115. I think there's going to be a lot of attention paid to Luke on the outside, but Irving can hit from the outside and also slash to the rim. And he's good. Everybody talks about with Boston, but I think he has more respect now for Boston than he did. But I think he still wants to beat the Celtics. It will be sweet for him. I think he's going to have a very good game tonight. Also, I'm going to smash this prop with 2 units. Derek Lively over 15.5 combined points and rebounds. He's probably get double-figure rebounds alone at -115.
No, I agree with you. I'll probably piggyback off of that as well. So I got the over 23.5. DraftKings is juiced it, of course. But we'll use your first selection. I like that selection as well. I have that bet going. I got a unit on it. I think it's wonderful. Evan, what do you got for us?
You already know that I got that same Lively play. I mean, I'm Lively all the time right now in the playoffs. And I will say yeah.
So I'm sorry. Just real quick? Do you want me to go ahead and put it on the combo, the PNR on this parlay, or do you have something else you'd like to let?
I mean, the number's better on that one. I will say one that I really like outside of Lively is Josh Green over a half of 3. I mean, it was up to -140, so it is a little juiced. But, I mean, he's another guy on this Dallas team. Like, he might not play the 22 to 28 minutes he played against him in the regular season, but he's going to play 18 to 22 minutes probably against this matchup. He's going to get the looks from the outside. He's hit 1 in 12 of the last 13 games. So I really like Josh Green tonight to knock one down.
Okay.
So I like either one of those, but yeah, Lively's a little better number. I think, at -115 or whatever it's at now, but either one of those two. And while we're talking Lively, I would sprinkle a double-double on Derek Lively. It was +475 earlier. He could average that the series. His hustle, he's a difference maker. Porzingis is the biggest guy on the court, but again, we don't know how much he's going to be out there. And let's be honest, Porzingis isn't really a good rebounder anyway. He kind of gets him by default because he's 7'2". I think, and no disrespect, but that's not his game, right? And I think that Lively has just come alive in these playoffs, and he's a stud. So I think a sprinkle on a double-double there. And I will say for a series long, Tatum and Luka are the guys on the glass. They always are. They're going to benefit from the long-range shots. but Lively's plus 1,200 to lead the series in rebounds. I think that's just a fun little, long shot play. But yeah.
So you're not worried about Luka?
I like that too. There's more juice on it now. I was going to say that it was a plus 900. He's averaged 7.8 rebounds in the last two series. I also like during the series, though, not great juice on it, but Luka to lead this entire series in threes at plus 100 too.
Okay, yeah, Luke. If people don't know this, Scott, Luka right now, I don't think Jokic kind of got the attention he deserves for leading the playoffs last year in points, rebounds, assists. First player to ever do it. I think it was just so casual and swept underneath the rug that we kind of forgot about it. And now Luka's come along. He's leading points, rebounds, assists, field goal attempts, free throw attempts. He's I forget where he's at. His steals, he's up there with that as well. I mean, it's just amazing to watch. And it's just they make it look so easy. They just make it look like it's just business as normal, just routine. And it's just sad to see people not that maybe get the recognition it's deserved, because I've been watching at least every NBA finals since 1991. I can remember that far back watching the finals. And it's just special to watch the greatest players do what they do on the best stage. And I just think that's pretty important to do. You
want some history here?
Yeah, break it down.
History buff. Before Magic and Bird, and actually early in Magic's career, do you know that the NBA was so less relevant that the games would be on, and this is before we had NBA TV and everything and League Pass, that in the late 70s and early 80s, the NBA finals were on tape delay. So tonight's game, you couldn't watch it until 11:30 at night on CBS.
Oh my gosh! No, I had no clue.
Those first few Los Angeles Laker championships were on tape delay on CBS at 11:30 at night.
Oh my God! No, that's amazing. They survived
before the league revival.
Yeah, I hear Barkley say all the time, Magic and Bird made the game what it is. Jordan took it to the next level. So he's I'm always thankful for those three guys.
He's right. The NBA was in the late 70s and the first few years of the early 80s, just the league was on hard times, and Magic and Bird really reinvigorated the league right away, to the point Dr. J was always there, but he couldn't carry all the appeal by himself.
Right.
Dr. J was floating on air before Jordan.
Yeah. Well, Shaq said that's the reason he played basketball is Dr. J. So he definitely had an influence over a generation. I'm just looking real quick. I don't have anything. Are you okay with adding the Josh Green threes? Right now I got Derek Lively over 15.5 points and rebounds. I have Kyrie Irving over 23.5 points. Do we want to tease up a spread and add it to it? Do we want to stay away from that because of the 3-point variable? And I'm just saying this out loud so everybody that's watching kind of gets an idea of how people that are professional bettors or frequent bettors, if nothing else, break down a bet and the process and the rationale behind it. So what do y'all think about that? Do we want to add?
I like adding the spread because what you guys said before, I think it's just too large for the Celtics to cover against a good Mavericks team.
Yeah, we all seem to like the plus 6.5. So even teasing it up. I mean, again, we're talking a parlay here, right? So it's not just a straight line. So we might give up a little bit of that juice to help our parlay, right? We don't want to lose because we take 6.5, and the Celtics cover. So I like that too. I wanted to mention, Scott, I know Iggy will appreciate this too, but my dad, Scott, has, and I grew up watching these VHS tapes of almost every 80s and 90s NBA finals. And he's a diehard Laker fan, but he's got to probably have almost every series, at least the late games and every game 7 still on VHS tapes. And I mean, they used to just sit up in his office. When I was little, man, that's what I would watch, and I would turn off the volume, and start doing the play-by-play and stuff on it. But I mean, I grew up on watching those, late 80s, early 90s games, man. And there was nothing like it.
Yeah, he can actually convert those now if he wants to. Those are easy, but yeah, those were good times. I remember the 80s Denver Nuggets. They had some pretty sweet uniforms. And Alex English
Yeah.
was a very
Alex English.
underrated small forward. And as for teasing the 6, do it like your hair, Iggy. Tease it.
Yeah. Tease it up. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're at 260 right now. 6.5 would put it at plus 425. Teasing it to 7.5 is 375. But so is 8.5. Isn't that weird? They're giving us the same odds. We might as well take the 8.5, right? At the same odds payout. Are y'all cool with that? 8.5, 3 plus 7.5. All right, so I'm gonna repeat it for everybody. I had to go do it on Bet 365. So I tried to do it on DraftKings. I don't know what's going on. But I'm sure you can do it on multiple sports books. Kyrie over 23.5 points. Derek Lively over 15.5 points plus rebounds. I got a double unit bet on over 7.5 rebounds. Derek Lively. I smashed it earlier, and then the odds went up, and I smashed it again. So you can get that at plus right now 115 if you want. But I like this points route as well. I'm gonna go sprinkle something on a double. But back to the parlay, over 15.5 point plus rebounds. We teased up the spread 2 points, 8.5. Cover, maybe perhaps some late fouls, anything like that. You try to account for any variable you can when you're teasing up. That puts us at plus 375. I'm going to put a half a unit on it, guys. And maybe this will get some people some pizza. Maybe they can get you some pizza out there. And we're going to be working with some pizza chains out here. I work at this local place, or I did, called Homeslice. And when I lived in Austin, there was a Homeslice that's considered one of the better pizza local places in Austin. So I'm very, I love my small chain pizzas, but I love the national chain pizzas too. It's hard for me. If you offer me a slice, I'm not going to turn it down. One of the happiest you can make any crowd of people is when you say free pizza. I mean, it makes any crowd happy.
I've been called a pizza snob, and I am. It's just like I don't do the change. It's, I'm like, New Yorker pizza. It's like I have my very specific spots that I like, and I'll drive my family crazy when I have a craving, because like I have to go. We got to order from there. I'm not going to stop. It's sometimes the Greek restaurants that make like gyros and souvlaki will very often have pizza, and it's a different kind of pizza. It's very good, but I got some really good slices from one of those places yesterday.
No, that's where it's at. I usually go to Homeslice. It's usually our Friday tradition. I just get the cheese. I double cut it because I got a 4 and a 2-year-old, so it's a lot easier. Because Colorado's influenced by New York pizza. It's like a Brooklyn style, but the altitude does a little different things to the dough. But there's even a spot in Denver that imports City of Brooklyn water to make their pizza dough because of the water scenario with the Brooklyn pizza and that whole thing going on. But did come in.
The water's a big deal, dude, because I lived in South Florida for 8 years, and the pizza just never tasted the same.
Yeah, I can believe it. And I've only had a couple slices. I stopped at some hole in the wall walking around Chinatown, actually, in New York. And I was like, man, I want to get a piece of pizza. It wasn't too far from the No Soup for You guy. I remember that. I was only maybe about a half a mile walking or so from there.
When you come back to New York, I'll bring you out to something.
I need to go to Queens, man. I've only been by the airport, but we do need to hook that up, Scott. I want everybody to go ahead and plug it one more time.
Yeah.
From Queens to San Diego, baby.
Yeah, Scott, coming out there. That's all. We can go pizza tour shopping all day long, man.
And sports. I want to go. The Mets still playing Queens, right?
Yeah. No, they're in Flushing here. Citi Field's a beautiful ballpark. I think the Mets recently put out a press release that Citi Field was voted like the best venue, I think, in the major leagues. I'm going to pull up the press release real quick, because the food is fantastic. Citi Field is it's like a giant restaurant with a baseball field in the middle.
And you were at the press box last. Or what I'm
Citi
talking
Field was selected as the winner of the Front Office Sports 2024 Best Venues Award.
Yeah, see that's you're reason enough for me to go to Queens, but going to a baseball park, don't twist my arm. That's one of the best places out there. What's up, Daniel? Thanks for tuning in. We've had quite a few viewers today for our first episode. I didn't market it that well, but I do want to remind everybody the pizza parlay. We do have several bets. Scott also liked, or Evan liked the double. Scott, you liked it to go not 1 + 5. What was your other series bet? I'm sorry. Did you have another series bet?
Oh, me series bets. I had Mavs plus 175, just
Yeah,
like
that
in the
was it.
juice, and Dallas plus 1.5 and minus 120. And
That's what I thought.
also
Yeah, both
Lively
did.
and Luke on the threes.
That's right. And then Luke Lively, we discussed to be the possible lead and rebounder at plus 1,200. That's a very interesting one to dip in on as well, because somebody's going to have to dominate this front court like we talked about. Man, I'm so excited, guys. We're going to get out of here. I do thank everybody for joining us. Please remember to go check out our Discord. We're revamping the website. We're going to have a lot of information over there. We got the Luka doll right there, man. I got some Luka somewhere up here. It's just a card, but he's up here hanging out with me too. And I do got to ask this question before we go. And then Scott, I didn't talk to you about this before, but maybe if you could just give us the sound bite. This is Scott Engel. You're listening to the Sports Affiliation, something like that to go out. But real quick, I got to know this because I think it's an interesting debate. Just a short answer. Is Jason Kidd, if the Mavericks win this, is Jason Kidd the most legendary, most important Maverick of all time? Go ahead, Scott.
Go first on that, or okay? He's asking.
Yeah.
In terms of a player, nobody's going to surpass Nowitzki. Maybe Luka will at some point. You're talking about a 21-year career, the best European player ever, Finals MVP, Series MVP. And here's the thing: as a player, Kidd was brought in to work alongside Dirk Nowitzki and help him win that championship. He started his career, he came back. If he wins a championship, he might become the most impactful player, coach / figure in team history. But as a player, I think only Luka is going to be able to rival Nowitzki at some point. And yes, you've been watching the Sports Affiliation. And I'm Scott Engel. I am the king. I am fantasy. And also check me out at rotoballer.com, Seahawks.com, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Thank you, Scott. Evan, you got what are your thoughts on Jason Kidd, and then where to find your work as well, sir?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this would make Jason Kidd's legacy, even greater. I mean, if Dallas hadn't won a championship with Dirk, I think that might, propel him up there because they'd be waiting so much longer. But that run that Dirk took him on, in that postseason, you mentioned the jet behind you. Dirk was just so special. And the way the NBA has changed with the amount of European players after Dirk, like think about when Dirk came in the league, that wasn't the most popular thing, right? Like European players weren't just coming out every single year. You weren't seeing the top 10 draft picks. Back then, college players were still dominating the top 10 NBA draft, where you look this year and it's like college basketball is great, but most of the top 10 are guys coming over from Europe, right? Like you got to be paying attention to see who's on the list. And he was special, man. I loved watching Dirk growing up. So, but I think that the fact that people were talking about Jason Kidd shouldn't even be an NBA coach not that long ago to where he's at now with this team. And yes, he's got Luka. Yes, he has Kyrie. But I don't know, man. I think we see coaches plenty lose series or not at least help win their team. I still believe coaching matters. I know great players help, but coaching matters, right? You have to have the coach there. So, I mean, I think it just solidifies Jason Kidd as, being that number 2. But like Scott said, he was brought in to be alongside. He will be as a player, but this would he'd be beloved, and it'd be a long time probably before he lost his job in Dallas if they can finish this season with a championship, man.
Absolutely.
And, for myself, I mean, at SoCal Ball Nerd on X, Twitter, whatever it is you want to call it nowadays. You can obviously find me there anytime. Follow the Sports Affiliation, subscribe to the YouTube, turn the notifications on. You'll see me popping on there, and check out the sportsaffiliation.com.
Yeah, appreciate it. Hey, Scott, thanks for being the first guest for this show. I really appreciate it. FSW Hall of Famer, go check out his work, baby. And remember, eat your pizza. I don't care if you put pineapple on it. Just heat it up every time you eat it. No more cold pizza ESPN days. Those days are long gone. Thank you guys for being here. We'll be here next week. It's the same time, 4 p.m. Eastern. Until then, enjoy a great game tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Scott.